Hello and welcome to Tremaine's Sci-Fi Hour. Yes, after a brief hiatus, we are back. So, today we're discussing Kenobi episodes 3, 4, and 5, because obviously they've been released since we released our episode on Kenobi, and we're willing to milk this for all it's worth. So, Jag, you've watched 3, 4,
Phantom.
and... Shut up, Jag. So,
Eh.
you've watched 3, 4, and 5, right?
Yep, I'm up to date.
So, thoughts? So in
Yeah, I
three,
had thoughts.
yeah. So in three we have Obi-Wan. Also spoiler alert. We have
Be
Obi-Wan.
obvious from the title.
Yeah, that should be. So we have Obi-Wan arriving on that planet that he meets Tara. Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have them escaping, and then obviously Vader snapping that kid's neck, and Leia getting captured by the third sister. Then in episode 4, we have Kenobi healing up, getting re-healed because he got fucked up pretty bad. Then we have we have him in that sort of that tomb with all the what I think are Jedi. I'm pretty sure a Jedi. A Jedi
Um,
tomb.
some of them were definitely Jedi. I can't speak for all of them, but
Yeah. And then we
yep,
obviously have
I can go. That one's a Jedi. So
then we had the youngling and everything. Yeah. So we also had the them smuggling Leia out, and then obviously the final fifth episode is Kenobi trying to escape that planet with all those refugees, and we also have the death of some very important characters. Um, so what did you think, Jag? About I know 3 was a while ago because we've had a bit of a problem.
yeah.
But so 4 and
So
5 you've watched rather recently, so give us some thoughts.
yeah, so we've reached the parts where some people are really starting to not like what they've done. I'm still enjoying it. I think again a lot of that is because I'm coming in without so much baggage. Um, not having that huge connection to it, it's a lot easier for me to just sit and enjoy.
Right.
Um, I do like certain things. I see they're still kind of going for. Yeah, I've mentioned it before because it is such a big thing, like the poetry of it. Um, in 3, holding him down into the fire, obvious parallel.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I guess it kind of shows how Vader views their encounter when Vader lost all his limbs.
Mm.
He sees it as, this is what you did to me. And from what I remember, it's more kind of what happened to him, not what he did
Right.
to him.
His
But Vader's
persecution,
like,
he feels
no,
persecuted, yeah.
you cut my limbs off and held me down. And it's like, well, no.
No, you tried to
You were
jump over.
fighting to the death. He won.
You tried to jump
And
over his
left
head
you
like a
there.
fucking dipshit, and he cut all your limbs off.
Yeah. And he maybe could have jumped over his head if he had the high ground. The problem was
He
going
didn't.
from lower, jumping over. That's not going to work. You gotta have the high ground.
Unless it's Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul. But
Um, so not only a parallel, but also an explanation of his psyche to an extent, I think.
right.
Um, and also fun little things. Unfortunately, I didn't notice myself. I got these pointed out to me. Soon as he sees Vader, they're like, Vader ignites lightsaber. Obi-Wan immediately runs for some high ground. And I don't know how much of that is like
conscious.
just
Yeah.
even from the point of the story writers, like how much of it was he goes for the high ground, and how much of it is, oh no, he run. he doesn't want to fight yet.
Well, yeah, he's pretty rusty at this point.
Yeah, but so there's little fun things like that. Don't know how much is intentional. But for episode 3, how much what did you like about it? What did you take away from it? What little fun references did you notice, perhaps?
Well, obviously the top thing everyone was talking about was Vader just randomly killing civilians as he was walking along, trying to provoke Kenobi to come out and fight him.
Yeah, I was for that scene. I was like, wow, that's way too casual.
Well,
just walking down, snap, snap, snap.
Well, so the idea is he's showing how, well, one, he's showing how much he doesn't care, and two, he's also trying to provoke the Jedi and Kenobi to save the civilians. And I think
Granted,
it's
the lives are unimportant to him. I was thinking more like just as far as, again, like the showrunners, the cinematography of it. He didn't make me care about those deaths much.
no, because it's more about Kenobi and Darth Vader pretty much looking at each other, because they both know where each other are, and they're just trying to provoke each other. Well, sorry, Vader's trying to provoke Kenobi. Kenobi's trying to get away. But
Sure, but like we're following Kenobi's story,
right,
and I feel like we're supposed to feel what he feels, right? As a protagonist.
yeah.
So if those
So
deaths affect him so strongly, shouldn't we as the watchers be like, "Oh my god, he's just snapping neck," as opposed to, "Ah ha ha, crack, crack, crack."
To be fair, he did snap the neck of a child, so I think probably a more normal viewer, unlike you, would have probably
Was I
gone.
supposed to be I was supposed to be affected with it? Oh no.
To be fair, Jag, he did snap the neck of a child and strangle a father, clearly a father, in front of his own child. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but I think you were probably meant to be affected by it. I think you were meant to be affected by it. I just think you were a little callous about it. So, I wasn't going to say anything, but you kept pushing it. So,
okay, that's on me.
Well, I mean, I felt something because I felt that sort of rush of oh shit, what's he gonna do? Like, is Kenobi going to like? I think it's testing Kenobi. That's what I was mainly looking for. Was the whole, will Kenobi throw off his, will he go out and save them? And when he doesn't, you sort of feel like, holy shit, what has happened to Kenobi? This is the guy who, and so yeah. Anyway, so
I don't know about that because I already got that feeling from the first episode where he's like, "No, I will hide and let people die."
Right, and that sort of, I think, is those continuous tests, I think, are important because it shows Kenobi's willing, like the Jedi are now in for the long haul. They're no longer thinking in the immediate future. They're now thinking in terms of what do you call it?
As you say, like the bigger view.
Yeah, so so the Sith originally, the reason they won against the Jedi is because they planned out 1,000-year-long revenge. The
1,000-year plan. That sounds familiar.
Shut up, Jay. Yes, it is the 1,000-year Reich.
Okay, cool.
So
we get more Nazi symbolism in episode 5, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So Jesus Christ. So we get a nice little picture, I think, of how the Jedi are changing. Now, we see some old Jedi, like the one that recognizes Kenobi and tries to help that saloon owner. It's all... We see him and we see why he fails. And we see why the Jedi ultimately failed. And that's sort of the the thing I think they're trying to come with, or maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. But anyway, episode 3, we've talked about that. So episode 4, A New Hope. No, episode 4 is basically them infiltrating that. I'm not going to call it a temple. What is it? Tomb?
Hideaway?
Hideaway?
Oh no, episode 4. Sorry, episode 4 is when they're infiltrating the spire.
Yeah, it's sort of a castle in the ocean. Yeah, no.
It's a base.
It's a base, a buttery biscuit base. Yeah. So So basically, that one had a lot more. What would you call it?
Interesting thing.
I mean, obviously Kenobi being tested
It was
with
a heist movie. It was it was good. It was fun.
Yeah.
It had a lot more interesting. It had an underwater scene, which is always nice.
Yeah, and then
I
obviously
don't know how you
Kenobi
felt about it.
obviously Kenobi using the Force to fucking drown all those stormtroopers.
Yeah, that was rough.
I mean, I also think it's interesting. So with that episode, we obviously had a great deal of Kenobi finally using his lightsaber for some cool shit, like
Yeah, he's using his lightsaber more. He's using the Force more. He's coming out of hiding, which I think kind of undoes the thing you were saying more about the long-term planning.
Right, but I also
He's being
think
more Jedi.
I think it also shows a I think what we'll find is Kenobi has done this. So this is also what I think, because there's two thoughts here. One thought is obviously the long haul thing, but the second one is also not losing yourself in the long haul, because it could be very easy to turn into the Sith or the dark side if you continue to leave it for that. If you are what do you call it?
Do you think he's realizing that there has to be an actual balance and that he'd lost that balance?
Yeah, I think he's realizing very quickly that he can't just always let them he tries initially to sneak around, and then when he's finally discovered, it's basically let's get the fuck out of here. But also, I mean, I think the star of the show is starting to become Darth Vader, because he really is not the Vader we have seen in the originals. He's the Vader we saw at the end of Rogue One. The supremely powerful with the Force, the maniac with a fucking lightsaber. He is now becoming. Well, he's not a maniac actually. He's a psychopath. He is so clear and cut with how he does things that it's frighteningly It's frightening, and it's
He's focused.
He's
very
focused.
He's quite single-minded, and in the later movies or the earlier movies. I hate that.
Fuck you, Lucas.
There's people who can meet him at his level. At this stage in this series, at least, he is near omnipotent. There is no one stronger than him. There's no one who can challenge him. Obi-Wan is constantly running in defensive. So we do see these really powerful scenes of him. And I'm not sure that he's more powerful than in other media. It's just that he's less challenged than in other media.
Well, I'd also say there's obviously the technological aspect of it. So obviously the originals couldn't have prequel era lightsaber fights. One, Alec Guinness probably couldn't do it at his old age. Two, the technology just wasn't there. Vader and Obi-Wan's original duel, the first lightsaber fight in the movies, that was exciting for the time, but obviously now is just like, if you watch it, go and watch it now. It's not as it's tense, but it's not as exciting as Obi-Wan versus Anakin, or Yoda versus Darth Sidious, or Count Dooku versus Yoda. These fights evoke more emotion through their dialogue and through how crazy and how batshit crazy they are. Like Yoda spinning around Count Dooku's head like a fucking Beyblade on ketamine. But yeah,
That would be a very lazy Beyblade.
yeah, but it's also a crazy Beyblade.
It's wobbly.
A wobbly Beyblade.
A Beyblade on ketamine would not be exciting.
Well, it would be a Beyblade. No, it's not full for this trip.
to be clear, you're saying the Beyblade would be on ketamine. Because Beyblades, whilst you're on ketamine, I could see that being fun.
Right, get this man some ketamine. Okay. Yeah.
Gotta get Beyblades. And ketamine. Anyway. Yeah, if we're talking about lightsaber fighting, do you want to jump forward to episode 5 briefly?
Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Why did we bring up ketamine?
You brought up ketamine. You were talking about Yoda on ketamine.
Yeah, you... Okay, anyway.
Which is also a fun concept.
So...
Explains his speech patterns.
I thought the explanation for his speech patterns was a sort of Japanese style of... Isn't in Japanese the... Is it the noun
they
becomes...
They have a different verb-noun.
Yeah.
Let's see. Boku wa Nico ga suki desu. So it would be I cat do love. No,
Yeah.
It's not really the Japanese.
No, okay. So I think it was.
I have heard there is an in-universe explanation. Basically, just how he thinks in regards to subject-object relations. Yeah. There's a lot to talk there, and I'd need to look it up a little bit more.
Yeah. We'll do a whole Yoda episode later, but
it's about what he thinks is important, and so it's essentially emphasis.
Right. Also, it makes him sound
Fight him,
smart.
you must. The fight matters more than who's doing it. Focus on the fight, and then you must fight, sort of thing.
Yeah. So, what we have for episode 5. No. I want to do one more thing. Leia escaping and also resisting the mind probe, where she basically uses the Force to try to infiltrate her thoughts. It's really interesting because, and then also Leia saying, "Can I speak to my father first? Because we're all on the same side." That was cheeky and that was funny. And so I think what we're getting now is Leia is important as well, because for a long time, obviously Leia was a second thought for Lucas, because I don't think he would have had them kiss in episode.
He hadn't planned anything.
We know that. It's Lucas. He doesn't really...
Fine. He's a pantser. Which is awkward when you're making a movie.
Well, to be fair...
Chitty chitty bang bang.
To be fair, I think he originally had planned for that to be the final episode, because the Death Star gets blown up, Kenobi is killed, but it's the final fight. So I think for him, the remaining movies were pretty much like, well, I just killed Kenobi. Who's going to replace him? A talking puppet? Hey, that's an idea. So anyway, we'll move on from episode 5 because Leia. Oh, you're right, Leia. So Leia Leia was clearly a second thought by Lucas. So when he decided to obviously bring Leia in as the twin, it was a problem. But now we're seeing Leia reflected more in these later shows, obviously, because now we have a more, I don't want to say progressive, I want to say she's less of a second thought, she's now more of a character. You know, we see her messing with adults, we see her messing with people and getting into their heads really easily. And
you
now,
see how she's actually an equal to her twin.
yeah, we see that she's quite powerful in her own right. But we also see what we also probably didn't get, I think, is what the sequels were trying to do was give each, the three main characters their send off. So, the first one was Han Solo getting killed. That was his send off. Then obviously the second movie was Luke getting killed off. That was his send off. And then the third movie was meant to be Leia getting killed, but then obviously Carrie Fisher unfortunately died before the movie was made, so they had to improvise. So I don't think we saw as much of what Leia could have been. I think we saw her with some interesting force powers, but I think we didn't see her at her full potential, because something that was great about Leia was she didn't actually rely that much on the Force. She relied on her wit and her sort of intelligence.
It makes sense. She was raised as a diplomat.
Yeah, so she was more of a, she was a diplomat. She was clever, and that was something that was what I took away from it, at least. But I know if JoJo was here, she would probably have something to say, but she's not, so...
Let's bring her in!
From the ringside. No, so, anyway, the
middle chair!
So we had, so we have Leia finally becoming realized as a character. Anyway, so moving on to episode 5, we have we have that dynamic between the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan in the set in the prequel era, where where he's a Padawan and he's the Jedi Knight, and they're fighting it out, and we see
us a little bit of their psychology.
Yeah, we see the tunnel vision of Anakin, and we start to realize that Obi-Wan has obviously considered Anakin's thinking and knows Anakin. But we also know that we also see that Darth Vader knows Kenobi. He knows Kenobi will not let him get to those civilians. So he wants to drag him out. He wants him to basically know, if you don't get out of there and come out, I'm going to kill all those civilians. That's what he wants. He wants him to know that. But what I think is brilliant in that scene is when he comes out to try to negotiate with the third sister. Now, when I saw that... How
much of that were you expecting?
I was expecting that because, do you know what? There's a... You know when General Grievous sees Kenobi in episode 3 and he says, the negotiator! General Kenobi. So that actually is what Kenobi was like in the Clone Wars. We see him with tricking. He would trick a lot of people. So, for example,
tricking?
Well, yeah, he would, because he literally sat down with a.
I mean, in this episode.
Oh yeah, but hold on, So in one of the Separatist generals was like, "Don't try to trick him. Don't try to stall Kenobi." Why stall, General? And he just straight up has some tea with the general and basically delays him long enough for that. But he also gets enough information out of the third sister to basically trick Vader. So what he does is,
You got a good update on Vader's psychology there
yeah,
too. Yeah,
and so
you already knew him well, but what's changed? Tell me, sister.
and
Oh, you're good.
so we see quite a bit of we see obviously Kenobi come out of his shell a little bit and think about, okay, how do I stall the shelling of the base? First of all, that needs
Yeah.
to stop, because if they keep shelling, they're going to get through and they're going to kill all these people. Then we see when that doesn't work, he then surrenders himself as a way of going, hey, I'm here, come get
Got
me.
what you want, you can stop with the other stuff. Yeah.
And we see that through his, not manipulation, but through his convincing of the third sister to turn against Darth Vader. Because
She
ultimately,
was always going to.
but
He managed to set a time.
yeah, he basically, well, you know,
So I'll go with manipulation.
well, yeah, because basically Kenobi did pretty much throw her under the bus with, well, actually no, he didn't, because what I think what he was trying to say is together we could take him. I think so. I believe that Kenobi didn't plan for her to go at it alone. I think when she rejected his offer, he basically went, well, I can't do anything now. She's too.
I think he knew it was like there was a range of outcomes,
Right.
and he's like, these are all positive for me.
Yeah.
If she can delay him a bit after they leave, that's positive.
Right.
Even if she does, like, she bought them a little bit of time. And she wasn't going to. She was going to wait longer and maybe succeed. I mean, we know from the movies that she wouldn't succeed. But that
But
wasn't
yeah.
the time for her to do that. That was a bad choice of timing.
Well, yeah, because,
And
well, no,
he
but
pushed her into it.
to be fair though, if it was anyone other than Darth Vader, that would have worked. I think what we forgot is that he was.
I mean, she took out the Grand Inquisitor, so.
Yeah. So what I think what we realized was what we saw in that was when Darth Vader was about to get stabbed in the back by the third sister, we see him hold her with the Force. So essentially what we see is Vader turning his attention from Kenobi straight to the third sister very quickly, and almost instantaneously. And so I think what we also see there is he was aware of what she was thinking, because we see that she was a youngling at one point, and he killed her fellow younglings and her and all the Jedi.
Everyone.
And so we see.
Am I right that we both predicted that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, well, I think you did. I can't remember what I predicted, but so
Maybe you just agreed.
yeah, I just was smarter than we boys.
We're like,
So,
yeah, she's one of them.
yes.
That's where she came from.
So we also see some of the power of what Anakin did when he marched into the temple and killed a bunch of children and a bunch of Jedi. So
Yeah, we saw it a lot more personally with him that time, because in episode 1, where we see Order 66, and it's... I recall our discussion, you was like, oh yeah, it's just a reminder of who they are, and I'm like, no, she's one of them. But it also didn't focus so much on Anakin's role in it, but in this episode we see his face with a lightsaber as he kills people. As he kills younglings, which I know you love.
Yeah. Well, fuck you. So we also see, obviously, Kenobi. When we see Kenobi disarm Anakin and bring him to heel, we see something very key in that, which is Kenobi is constantly improving and was constantly focusing on improving himself rather than trying to gain victory. So,
well, using the Force and not the saber is also a
theme of that,
a lesson.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately Anakin took well because the fight with Reva.
Well,
again, poetry. So it wasn't just flashbacks to remind us of his psychology and their connection. It also immediately mirrored the fight with Reva. She ignites lightsabers. He takes them. It's like, oh, you remember what Kenobi did. So that flashback, do you think those sorts of memories were also going through both of their minds at the same time?
Yes, I think... No. I think it was only in Kenobi.
Is it for the audience? Is it for the characters?
It was for Kenobi. It was for Kenobi. Okay. Kenobi was remembering that fight and thinking, what do I know about Anakin?
Doing it again.
Well, no. I think he was thinking, what do I know about Anakin? He's not very patient. Like when he says he can't sustain a siege, that's very important because if Vader can't sustain a siege, they just need to wait him out, essentially. That's all it is. Is when Vader cannot wait to get Kenobi, he's basically so consumed with himself that he's going to let things slip by. Whereas Kenobi is thinking in more of the wider vision. Anakin is very much tunnel vision, and that's sort of a reflection of the Force, that's a reflection of their psychologies. And so, when Kenobi escapes, obviously he escapes. I don't think we need to worry about that. And obviously, when Leia figures out how to open the hatch, that was, I think it was I think they were very good episodes.
I think they were trying to show us a little bit of how that lightsaber duel is, not necessarily the duel itself, but the education he had between the two did affect Anakin subconsciously as well. Because his fighting style against Reva was so different from... He took on... The way I kind of saw it was... Kenobi was trying to teach Anakin a lesson in that flashback, in that scene.
Right.
And Anakin took a lesson from it, and it's not the lesson Kenobi was teaching.
No.
He took something else, and what he took from it was real and helpful, because he then used it in the fight with Reva, and it shows that he did internalize aspects.
So what I think it also reflects. So there's I don't know why I'm bringing
how to fight. He didn't take how to be as a person.
Right, but he also. So what I think it is, right? So there's a German story about Native Americans and this white. It's called Winnetou or something like that. So basically, two people very famous took away from those stories: Hitler and Einstein. So one extremely famous pacifist and one notorious warmonger. So I think what we see there is...
To be clear, which one's which? No. Carry on.
Oh, God. So when we see that, we see lessons can be interpreted in different ways. So Anakin, I think it's a reflection of when Yoda, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Mace Windu say he shouldn't be trained. When they said Anakin shouldn't be trained, then
too old. He's got emotions. He's got connections, and they were right.
They were right, but they were also wrong, because if they had left Anakin, Sidious would have gotten to him.
And then if they had instead joined in on the training and been more helpful, maybe he would have turned out better.
So, also, the problem with that is, there's lots of issues with the in-universe thing. So there's the one where Qui-Gon was clearly meant to be his master.
Mm-hmm.
And because Kenobi took over, it was a mistake because Kenobi listened to the Jedi Council more than Qui-Gon did. So Qui-Gon in canon is meant to be like Anakin. He disobeys the Council, but he trusts more in the Force, and he's more in tune with the Force than what the Council are. So
also having the riskiest Padawan being taught by a person who's only a master because his master just died.
Well, not because the master just died.
An experienced person.
Well, no, because that's the thing. If they had given him to anyone else, the same thing would have happened. It would have been... No, because the problem is Anakin cannot be taught by a rigid-minded Jedi. So Obi-Wan was perfect, but the problem was Obi-Wan was so inexperienced, he worried about how he was teaching Anakin.
Perfect.
Qui-Gon was perfect for Anakin, but if we see what Anakin and Obi-Wan were able to achieve, if Obi-Wan had trusted in himself more, I think Anakin would have turned out better. Obviously not, because we needed him to become Darth Vader. But if we look at what Obi-Wan could have done, with how he could have trained Anakin to... How do I put this? Yes, attachments are good, but also remember not to get focused on one thing.
Qui-Gon understood balance a lot.
Balance, yeah. But he also taught Obi-Wan some great lessons, and I think Obi-Wan would have been a good teacher if he hadn't listened to the other Jedi so much. I think they had a big influence on how he taught Anakin, and that was a big mistake. Anyway.
Because he was still a Padawan.
Well, he was a knight.
He wasn't ready. Yeah, Obi-Wan wasn't ready to be a dad. I think that's the problem.
Obi-Wan wasn't ready to be a dad. Essentially, yeah. Essentially, yeah. But I think he was a good dad, but I think he was also...
Oh, he stepped up to the plate, yeah.
But he also
did... well, I have to be.
Yeah, he didn't, turn and run. But...
No. But he wasn't ready. He just... It was pushed on him, and he went, well, I'm going to be the good one. I'm going to do what I should.
Yeah.
He's noble and inexperienced and not ready.
Yeah. So anyway,
problems.
So let's think predictions. Because I think there's 5 more episodes. I think there are only 10. I think
there was 3.
Okay, maybe, I don't know.
We can double check.
Hold on, check that for me. Yeah, check it.
We'll just have our editor, our producer, check on that.
Producer, yeah.
Well, are we finished talking about what happened in the show first?
To a degree, we are. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
The fight was awesome. So I guess first of all, rip Tala. I do love how willing they are to just kill people. I think that's the right choice.
The George R. R. Martin approach.
Well, I mean, because we're not... We know certain people have to live.
Right.
Obviously. And I am pleased with them just wiping out anyone else they're willing to do. It's just, we're just gonna... Tala seems important. Everyone was talking about how Raver's going to be the real antagonist, not... they're not going to make Anakin. And it's well, she did.
And do you know what's interesting about that? Is this is all pre-done. So they're not actually reacting to this in real time. This is all done. The whole series is done. So I think what's interesting about that is they're not doing it to subvert expectations. They're doing
Next
it.
episode's the last episode, man.
What?
Yeah. There's only 6. There are only going to be 6 episodes.
Ah, fair enough. So there must be.
The director has said that they do want to do a second season.
Right. Yeah.
It has not been renewed at this point.
Okay. So
it's so popular, they have to. Right?
Well, the Clone Wars was super popular, and they
How many
still
seasons?
axed the 7.
Right. We're on season 1.
True.
So, I don't know, because we had...
So
what was the other ones they've done recently? They did Rogue?
No. Mandalorian got a second season.
I think there's more hype for this. I mean, we don't
Book
have
of Boba Fett. Book of Boba Fett only got 1.
I didn't hear and feel much hype about that one.
No, I think Book of Boba Fett really disappointed people because maybe people were expecting essentially. So I think they've learned a lesson from Book of Boba Fett and from Mandalorian, which is you can't rely solely on nostalgia. You have to bring something new to the plate, otherwise it's going to be the same shit over and over again.
I do agree that if you don't get a good reaction, cut. Just cut and run. Yep. Hey, this isn't working. End. I do want them to keep going with the ones that worked, though.
Right. Well, I think if they thought that way, then they would have continued some of the Clone Wars. I mean, there was still so many stories that needed to be told. I think there's a second season of Bad Batch coming out, which is a Clone Wars sort of era. No, not era. After post Order 66, clones running around trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So what we get so I think we've talked that to death, but predictions.
The choreography and the rave fight.
Yeah, so I mean it was beautiful. Yes, like Vader doing essentially what. So if you look up,
he was playing with her. You could almost hear him laughing. It was beautiful.
So
it was, but because of that, it was so different from other lightsaber fights we see, where it's more balanced.
So
he was going in and just dominated, and that was fun to see.
So if you watch in the Clone Wars,
seeing women dominated. Don't you?
Shut up. So if we look at Darth Sidious versus Maul and Savage in the Clone Wars, we see Darth Sidious do the exact same thing to Savage Opress. So if you look delightful. It's that sort of casual, like dodging the blade, just sort of do, and then igniting the blade just to block it, and then just sort of kicking them around. Like it's beautiful to watch because it's just such a moment, because we've seen Reva sort of dominate this series so far.
Because she's never fought a Jedi. She has, but they were all weaklings.
Yeah.
And so all younglings, all elderly. She's never had a fair fight until Kenobi.
Kenobi was a fair fight, but she also has never fought a Sith Lord. Like, this is something to remember, is the term Sith Lord, I think we all thought was just sort of like whatever. No.
A bit masturbatory, yeah.
There were 2.
Because there were Jedi Masters and Sith Lords. Kenobi is, would you consider him to be a knight at this stage?
No, well, so his title is still Master, because he was a Master of
but
the
that's
Jedi.
Master Padawan sort of Master, not...
No, he was...
like a Yoda level.
No, that was Grandmaster. So Yoda was Grandmaster of the Jedi Order, and he was on the Council and a Master. So he was very much... Kenobi, at the end of the Clone Wars, was peak Kenobi. But,
I forget Clone Wars. So would you say he's Grandmaster level?
No. I would say I would. Clone Wars. Clone Wars. No, that was still Master. No one really competed with Yoda in the Jedi Order except for maybe Mace Windu. But if we
ever get to that sort of level?
no, I think when Yoda and Kenobi are discussing fighting Anakin and Sidious, Obi-Wan says, "Send me to Sidious. I can't kill Anakin." And Yoda turns around and says, "You'll never be strong enough to fight Sidious." And I think that there's two things about that. There's one, showing that Yoda recognizes that Obi-Wan must face Anakin and must face his failures. And second, that essentially he's saying, don't try to kill Sidious. You never will. It's not your place. It's not your area.
But
Anyway.
Kenobi's claim of "I can't defeat Anakin" was because of their connection, not
Yeah,
because of...
no. I can't. No, it's not. I can't defeat Anakin. It's I won't fight Anakin. I won't kill him. Essentially, he didn't want to kill Anakin because he's like a brother to him. But I mean, you can't really. That was a fault.
He's a brother, father. Lucas has troubles with family relationships.
Okay. Anyway, so we need to move on to predictions because we're running out of time. So, predictions. What's the last episode going to be?
Okay, so Reva is not getting up from that.
Right.
I don't know if she'll bleed out, but she is out of the fight, in my opinion, because they've done the, revenge can make you persist or whatever it is. Like, first of all, Anakin survived out of hate. Then Reva got to where she is out of revenge. Then the Grand Inquisitor comes back and he survived because of revenge. That's 3 beats. Stop at 3. Reva's story has to be over as a main player. Now she's going to do something with that communicator. I don't know what's the deal is with that.
I think
I suppose that's where the predictions come in.
Right.
What do you think's going to happen there? Because I don't have an idea for that.
So I think what's happened is Reva has just realised they've seen that. I think it was broken when they found it, but I think either Reva... So if Reva does survive, I think she'll go after Kenobi or Bail Organa or some sort of thing.
Aggressively or friendly?
Aggressively. See, this is the problem. I actually have no idea what's happening with Reva. I'm not certain she's dead, but I'm also not... She
can't be with the Empire now.
Yeah. So anyway, but I think she may go after Kenobi as revenge for essentially setting her up. But I also think that possibly...
She's screwed. She can't fight him.
Possibly. Possibly they've already seen that transmission and that was her warning Kenobi.
I mean, she can't communicate with Kenobi.
No, but we see her... We see her sort of looking at the broken transmission.
Getting little snippets from it, yeah.
Little snippets from it, and then we see Kenobi realise something. Like, we see him have there's a tremor in the Force, and we see that sort of concern on his face.
I think he just had a "did I leave the stove on" moment.
Okay.
I think he went, hang on, wasn't there... Oh, I'm forgetting something.
There was something...
And that's what he's forgotten.
So I think the final episode... Because I think the final episode will definitely be there has to be a Vader versus Obi-Wan fight. I don't think it'll be on Tatooine. I'm curious. I actually don't really know what's going to happen. I know...
There's no way it's Tatooine.
It can't be Tatooine because then Vader knows too much. But there must be something that happens to Bail Organa that they have this conflict with each other
Well,
because
what should we expect given
Organa survives.
movies?
Organa survives till the destruction of Alderaan.
Right.
So we know Organa is going to live. We know Leia's going to live. We know Obi-Wan's going to live.
Happens?
Huh? So what I think is what I'm having trouble with is I really don't know who's going to face Obi-Wan in a sort of climactic duel. I don't know what planet it's going to be on, and I don't know really what's going to... I know that Luke obviously survives, but I also wonder what happens with Luke, because Luke has obviously now alluded to that they know something, that they know there were two children that are force sensitive, but there's all sorts of things going on in that headspace. So what I will say for my prediction is there's going to be a big fight, obviously, where Kenobi faces off with someone, either the Grand Inquisitor, Vader, or Vader or the Grand Inquisitor. Then we're going to have Leia obviously return triumphantly to her father. We're going to have Luke in some sort of danger. Possibly not Luke, maybe Owen, maybe Beru. I don't know. One of the three are going to be in danger. And Obi-Wan's going to have to come back to fight them. I personally think it'll be a 2-part episode, because that seems like the sort of thing they would do.
By 2-part, do you mean an hour long?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I agree.
Because
the episodes vary so much in length. I think it's a finale. It's going to be an hour long. It's going to be the longest episode.
Hopefully, yeah. So, anyway, those are my predictions. What are yours?
So, I think she's not going... I think Vader doesn't know about the communicator.
Okay.
And I think she won't tell him. I think she survives, is weakened, can't really recover. I think she goes after Luke. She knows she's still angry with Kenobi and stuff, but she can get this new target of Luke as revenge. Why did Owen and his wife die in the movie? They were attacked by
Stormtroopers.
Okay. She could be behind that, essentially. I think that would be interesting if she becomes the impetus behind the Luke attack.
So
I'll be very disappointed if she tries to go back to Vader with the information. I think that would suck as a story beat.
Yeah, that would be bad, because
I think they could go that way.
They could, but it would be a poor
I think it's
decision.
plausible. I just think it would suck.
It would be a poor decision, in my opinion, but maybe they could pull it off. But so what I think is happening in this moment is she is... I'm not convinced she's dead, but I'm also not convinced she's alive. So she's in limbo for me. Yeah, so I think...
Well, kind of like what I said, like, she is out of combat.
Out of combat, yeah. She's out of action. But, she... I don't know, there's potential there. But, what I think is interesting, if there's a second... If they're thinking of a second season and they're not just thinking of money, then there's obviously still story potential, which means there can be more. So obviously this is so I was actually right in saying that Leia's rescue was going to be the whole season.
Yeah.
So sort of, I didn't think it would be right in the end, but yeah, it turned out to be right. But so what I think we see there is possibly a reflection of what Kenobi's next thing will be, which I think will be when he returns to Tatooine, he will not bury his lightsabers again. I think he will start practicing. I think he'll have that sort of 80s movie montage where he'll be like practicing his strokes, his defensive stances using the Force. I think we'll see him training himself to train Luke. And I think that's ultimately what we'll see. But obviously we can't I'm actually lost. I actually don't know what's going to happen next. So I'm very excited to see this final episode. I don't think it'll be out by the time we release this, but hopefully not at least. So yeah, that's pretty much us, I think, Jag. Thank you for listening for this long. Again, sorry for being on hiatus for so long, but we had a medical emergency. And finally, don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram, Tremaine Sci-Fi Hour, and just keep following that for more information on episodes and also for more information on random stuff I think of. Thank you again for listening. Goodbye.